most important games at the Cottage for years. Only a win will do for Fulham, with 2 of their remaining 3 games being against Liverpool and Arsenal. Blackburn's midweek win over...
So Jacqui, you were the first female commentator on Match of the Day here back in 2007. What do you remember from that day?
I remember waking up in the morning after not very much sleep, thinking, oh my goodness, I've just got to get through this day. And thinking that I felt in the eye of a storm, not in control of anything particularly, and just needed to get through it because the preceding few days had been completely insane and I'd hardly slept for 3 nights. I hadn't eaten for 3 days. My stomach was a complete knot. And most importantly of all, the only thing that really mattered to me was I felt underprepared because the few days I'd had in mind to prepare had just been swept away from me. So that was the main issue for me. So it was just a case of getting through as best I could.
How do you think it went?
It was nowhere near my best commentary ever. I mean, it was my first ever TV commentary. And TV commentary for highlights is completely different to radio commentary live, whereby you're linking to other games and racing and whatever else is going on. So it was completely different, and I didn't really have much time to prepare for the TV side of things. I remember drying my hair that morning and listening to Steve Wilson on Match of the Day and trying to get the rhythm and the flow, but it's completely different. So yeah, it was not exactly my best work, but I did my best on the day, given the lack of prep time and the craziness that had preceded it.
Did the craziness surrounding it both before and afterwards take you by surprise?
I was surprised by it to a certain extent. I certainly didn't expect the level of interest. I did think in the back of my mind, after I was asked by the editor, would you like to do Watford, Manchester City initially? And I said, oh, yes, please, that'd be great. And as I walked away, I thought, ooh, might this be an issue if and when people find out in advance? And I just thought, well, people won't find out in advance because there's not going to be a press release about, certainly not. I mean, it wasn't supposed to be an issue. I was supposed to just be another name on the team sheet of commentators. But unfortunately, people talk, of course, and I understand that, of course, in our industry, and word spread from here to there, to a newspaper columnist who did his job very well and did a little bit on it the Tuesday before the Saturday. And unfortunately, with it being Tuesday before Saturday, it had time to grow legs, and boy did it grow legs. So no, I didn't expect the level of it, not at all, but it is what it is, and we got through it and lived to tell another tale.
Do you think you got more criticism and, well, obviously you got significantly more media attention because you were the first woman, but do you think people were almost looking for reasons to criticise you because of that?
Oh, I don't know what people were thinking. I do not know. It was just a maelstrom of craziness. So there were so many different perspectives. There were lots of people supporting me, by the way, lots of people. But it was just, the thing that really took me back was the fact that people assumed I didn't know what I was doing or couldn't possibly do the job, or more to the point, couldn't understand football. And that was just the weirdest thing, because by that point I'd been going to football matches in person for 17 years. And I couldn't understand why certain people were just dismissing me, some people in the game as well, as it turned out, as possibly being capable of understanding football or understanding the passion was one of the criticisms. And I just thought that was bizarre, because that was not something that bothered me at all, lack of knowledge. It didn't, because I lived and breathed football from being a little girl. And I mean lived and breathed it. Magazines, I would absorb, I'd hoover up information. That's all I thought about pretty much for a couple of decades. And I went home and away to watch my own team. I wasn't, a glory hunter, just fair weather Saturday evening watch football matches. I lived and breathed it. And it kind of was quite amusing, really, that people couldn't get their heads around that. Some people. But those are the people, to be perfectly honest, I wasn't really that bothered about. I just really cared about trying to do a good job, and that was it, really.
And Laurie Sanchez gave you a shirt to mark the occasion. What are your memories of that, and do you still have it?
I still remember being down in that corner, that lovely corner that's still there by the dressing room. I love this stadium, and genuinely always have done. And the whole day was just mad. I remember just walking up and being asked to meet some sponsors in the press room, and all I was thinking about was, I need to write my intro and work out what the team news is. But I was very polite and carried on and went to the tunnel and chatted to Laurie and he gave me the shirt, which was lovely. And in terms of where it is, it's in my house somewhere. It's in the loft. It's in a box. It's not going anywhere. It'll be a precious memory forever, but it'll be kept there safely for now until I find something long term to do with it.
Obviously, the media attention, because there are so many more women doing it now, has died down. But do you think the attitudes have changed since you first appeared on TV?
Yeah, generally speaking, yeah. I think people now don't so much question, do you know anything about football, which was just frankly boring, tiresome and utterly ridiculous. It really was, even then. I think now it has changed because there are more of us. Not loads more in the press box, not enough in terms of print writers, I would still say. Nowhere near enough in men's football. But commentators, yes, at least now. And the thing I love now is if I hear a female commentator whose name I don't know. I love that because that means there are more of us now, and it's not a big deal to have a new female commentator. So I think people are more used to it. I think that was part of the problem with me, was people, unless they listen to the radio where I was commentating regularly, every week at least, once, twice, maybe 3 times a week. But if they weren't listening to 5 Live, they wouldn't have heard me or a female voice. So I do understand that. It was new, it was different, people questioned everything. But now I think things have changed because there are more women working in football, full stop, thanks to the wonderful organisation of Women in Football. I have to say, I think they've played a huge part in encouraging inclusivity. It's not about special treatment, it's about promoting talent, encouraging talent, about making talented women feel that they belong, because if you feel you don't belong, like I didn't initially, you can't produce your best work. Like I didn't that first time up there. No way did I produce my best work because I felt I was fighting against the tide. And I think women coming through now, especially younger women who will have grown up with boys, brothers, seeing them as an equal when it comes to football, as my son and daughter do when they play in the garden. My son doesn't feel entitled when he's kicking a ball against his sister. So hopefully with the next generation coming through and seeing women on television, in the press box, in the commentary box, elsewhere in football, in the boardroom is important too, in those decision-making roles. I think, yes, it makes it a lot easier for women to feel like we belong, and we do belong.
And one thing that there has been a rise of in recent years is the female officials, and Rebecca Welch took charge for the first time of a Premier League game here at Craven Cottage. How important do you think that is?
There's something about this place, isn't it? There's something about this place. Oh, it's really important, and it's very different, I think, to me being up there, and no one here is affected by that. The players aren't affected by having a woman in the commentary box. That's a completely different situation. But having a woman making the decisions on a football field, my goodness, fair play to her and others. That takes serious courage, I think, to have put yourself in that situation for years as she has. But then it absolutely is a meritocracy. There is not a chance PGMOL would have gone, oh, we need a lass really, Rebecca will do. Just no. I mean, she had to have been good enough. She had to meet all the requirements, have come through all the training and excelled in it. Not just come through it, but excelled in it. And that's what we have to do. It's a little frustrating, I guess, that we're still having female firsts. We can celebrate them, and I think we should to a certain extent, but we don't really want female firsts. We want women working in an inclusive industry to be the norm.
So there's one barrier that hasn't yet been broken. There hasn't been a permanent female manager of a men's football team. How far away do you think we are from that?
I think people have been asking that for years. When I started covering England women back in 2004, people were talking about it, starting to talk about, well, should Hope Powell be a Premier League manager, etc. But I think people were really missing the point. They were kind of looking at a female manager and looking at the men's game and saying, well, of course they should be together. But not necessarily. I think in time, once women have had more opportunity to fund themselves or be funded to take these badges, which are really expensive, and how are they going to get the money to fund them at the moment? They haven't all had 10, 20, 30, 50, 80, 100 grand a week playing careers behind them, like a lot of the men have. And that's just a fact. So that's why we are so far behind in that regard. So I think it will take time. We've all seen Emma Hayes be a beacon for football management, not just women in management, but she's earned so much respect. I think it has helped encourage other women to aspire to those top jobs and help change the landscape of men's opinions when it comes to females in coaching. I don't think it'll happen overnight, but I don't think it should be something that we're banging on about too much. I think it will happen in time. I think it has to happen from the ground up. Those women have to get that experience first. They can't be parachuted in at the top end without that experience, because it would be a nightmare experience for them personally, and it could all fall down like a pack of cards if they don't have that experience to fall back on. And of course it comes down to earning respect as well. So I think opportunities for women to earn their coaching badges, get all that experience at grassroots level, and then come through. And then I think it would take somebody with a big personality and a big, strong personality to cope with high profile men's management, because it's a tough job, as we know. The scrutiny of a female would be just insane. It really, really would be. But hopefully it would happen at a lower level first without quite so much scrutiny. But I think it will certainly take a certain type of character. Absolutely can be done, and it will be done in due course. But just let those women have the opportunity to armour themselves and to get into the best position they can be to do the best job they could do.
Well, absolutely. And I mean, there's only one woman who's even been in charge of an academy, never mind even or a second team. And that's obviously the pathway that you'd be looking for, rather than just thrusting someone into the limelight where, you know, they'll be subject to so much scrutiny and might not thrive in that situation. But actually, you know, taking charge of the under-18s and the academy and the second team and sort of working their way, you know, it shouldn't be too long before you see a woman assistant manager. I don't see why that, and they don't get anywhere near as much of the scrutiny as the sort of managers.
Well, yeah, couldn't agree more. I think those stepping stones, the building blocks, are really, really essential. Achieve something at a low level when the pressure's off, when there aren't people scrutinising you. And then when it comes to being given that opportunity, like you said, I think after having been an assistant where the pressure's off and you can absorb the environment and see how it all works at that level and in that industry, then that's when that person is going to be best equipped themselves to deal with it. But also, that's when other people going, oh, she's only got that job because she's a woman. And then they look at a CV and go, oh, actually, no, she hasn't. She's achieved and she deserves that spot. So I think those steps are important, and I don't think we need to rush it too much, but we need to make sure that those women are given those opportunities and feel that they can progress when they have all the tools at their disposal.
And also make sure that women who want to work in men's football are given that opportunity and not sort of encouraged more into the women's game if that's not what they want to do. Obviously it's great there are opportunities in the women's game, but for women who want to work in men's football there should be that chance as well.
Well, there are a heck of a lot of men working in women's football.
I know.
So many men working in women's football. So many, the vast majority. Are managers here and abroad, in Europe, in America. There aren't that many women head coaches. So yeah, absolutely, there should be opportunities for women working in men's football. I think the whole point of those of us who work in football and those of us who work with women in football, the organisation, it's just about trying to blur the line between men's football and women's football. You call it the World Cup, but you call it the Women's World Cup. The default setting is that men play in a World Cup. It's the Euros and the Women's Euros. Personally, I like to see that change. It should be the Men's World Cup, the Women's World Cup, the Men's European Championship and the Women's. And I think if we can blur that line so it's just football, that women who want to work in football are not necessarily pigeonholed to go and work in women's football, then that makes sense to me, in the same way that men who want to coach and get an opportunity in the women's game of being manager of a top club, then why shouldn't women have that opportunity in the men's game? It's, you know, they do the same training courses. And I think it's a case of leadership. Leadership's really important. If women are encouraged to be their best selves, to be the best that they can be, then look at the talent pool that you'll have. whether it's in officiating, whether it's in the boardroom, whether it's in the commentary gantry up there, whether it's in the press box over there. Encourage women to feel like they belong and so that they can perform to the maximum of their ability. Then you'll have more talent across the board, and football certainly will be stronger for it.